We are here to talk about resilience and grit. And we hope that you engage with the speaker for the hour that is sometimes will resonate with you, that you can put in your toolkit to help you on your educational journey here at St. Augustine's University. That toolkit is super important. And I can tell you that's, for me, it is true. And as a young man from a small town in North Carolina with several siblings, when I say several, let me be very specific, 9. I was a first generation college student, the first male in my family to even think about a college. No electricity, no running water until I was about 9. And I know about resilience and grit. My scars remind me that I did indeed survive those deepest wounds. That in itself is an accomplishment, it is, that I'm standing here today. And I remember in 1974, my mother couldn't hardly believe it. My father, I'm getting off script just a little bit, my father would come here in his bill overalls and pay $200 to get me through that BOA, Business Office Approved. I'll never forget it. I don't know where he got the money from, but he did it. They remind me that the damage life has inflicted on me has in many places left me strong, and I say very strong, and more resilient like a basketball. I don't quit. That's off strip, Dr. Plunkin. What hurt me in the past has actually made me better equipped to face the future. We hope that you enjoyed today's Lyceum, and we look forward to the impact that this will make in the way that you assert yourselves. You have to assert yourselves. And you have to keep on going. You have to be resilient. You can't ever quit. So, and what is the destination? Graduation. Say it with me. Graduation. And that is what you always should have, a destination. You should be intentional in life. So that is our welcome. We're so glad to have you here. Now Mr. Bertie Warren is going to do the occasion.
Thank you, Dr. Falcon, to faculty, staff, and Dr. Falcon and administrators, and all our guests. My challenge is the occasion. I'd like to begin with a question. How exactly do some of us, when faced with, how do some of us succeed when faced with adversity? How exactly do some of us succeed when faced with adversity? That's the question that will allow me to segue into further discussion about the topic today here. If we knew the stories of Viola Davis, Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, or even J.K. Rowling, and countless others, many who may be sitting here in the audience with us today, then perhaps we would have a greater appreciation for the contribution of failure to one's success. Yes, what's the contribution of failure to anyone's success? As paradoxical as it may seem, this is the foundation of today's conversation regarding resilience. Resilience explains why some of us are able to overcome seemingly overwhelming obstacles, while others become victims of early experiences and our own environmental circumstances. However, remember that no matter what the early experiences are or the insurmountable environmental obstacles may be, blaming someone else for our lack of success has an expiration date. Blaming someone else for our lack of success has an expiration date. And I will close with a word from one of the greatest authors of mankind. Be strong and of a good courage. Be not afraid, neither dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee wherever you go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joshua 1. Thank you so very, very much. And now, for the introduction of the speaker. I saw Jay the other day at a hotel working. She's resilient. You know, you got to take care of yourself. Jay Burner is going to do the speech. She's the Safe Falcons president. Jay.
Good morning, Falcons. Good morning. Today, I will be introducing our Lyceum speaker. Charles Hunt is a resilience expert, educator, and motivational speaker. This former human resources and supply chain leader left the corporate world and founded the Audacity firm to fulfill his vision of building unbreakable spirits and cultivating resiliency for those who, like him, have the audacity to succeed. He helps students, young professionals, business, and thought leaders build resilience while harnessing our most important resource in resilience, our minds. Charles' TED Talk, What Trauma Taught Me About Resilience, has attracted international acclaim. Armed with undergraduate and graduate business degrees and experience from the life-issued School of Hard Knocks, Charles is uniquely gifted and equipped to inspire, motivate, teach, and explain how clients can execute their own from-to story. Let's give a warm welcome to Charles Hunt.
For the very warm welcome. It's an absolute honor and pleasure and privilege to be in front of you all this morning. Hope everyone is feeling well. It's first, what feels like true autumn day. I guess before I get started, I should probably take you back to where I began. I'm originally from the West Coast, Oakland, California. Any West Coast people in the building? I see you, I see you. So I was born and raised in Oakland, California. It's a beautiful place. Has a very special place in my heart. It has a very rich history, not only from a artistic standpoint, political standpoint, a sports background and foundation as well. It's the home of the Black Panther Party, which initially was started in efforts to better serve communities that were underserved and over-policed by their government. Now, perhaps in spite of, or maybe even because of that focus on Black liberation, Oakland also became ground zero for the crack epidemic that swept through the America, really, in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And it turned my childhood into a labyrinth of criminalization, drug abuse, of poverty, segregation, and poor access to opportunity. With that foundation, it unfortunately led towards me having to experience quite a bit of trauma to begin my formative years. So I've never lived in the house with both of my parents. Not one time in my life. I spent my entire childhood in poverty and on welfare. I lived in a drug house at one point as my mother became addicted to drugs. The same disease of addiction that today's opioid users receive compassion and treatment for my mother actually received jail time for it. I lived in the projects for probably half of my childhood until my mother's disease of addiction became so severe that we didn't move from our projects so much as we evacuated with whatever we could fit into a bag. And the next 9 years was spent living with my grandmother. Not long after getting to my grandmother, when I was 10 years old, my father was murdered while he himself was in jail. I spent many, many years not having the protection of my mother because unfortunately she was in the streets, and my father who had already been killed. Despite that, I would leave my grandmother's house when I was 17 years old, the middle of my senior year of high school, and begin to forge my own path. So I got about a good 18 years of experience in what is now known as ACEs, or Adverse Childhood Experiences. So if you're not familiar with adverse childhood experiences, it was a study done by the Kaiser Permanente and the Center for Disease Control, in which they identified 3 different areas of dysfunction, whether household dysfunction, abuse, or neglect. And you were rated based off of 10 categories amongst these 3 silos. And their findings were actually fairly astounding. What they found is that nearly 2/3 of the population sampled had at least one ACE category that they were impacted with. Fully 1 in 8 had at least 4 categories. So for perspective, of the 10 ACE categories, I actually checked off 7 of them, and would have had an 8th circled if my family had any knowledge about or coverage for mental health. So it's very much a disease or a scourge that many people end up having to try to overcome for themselves. I know that I am not alone in having had to experience some level of trauma on my path to success. But despite that 18-year ACE experience that I was so unfortunate to have, I also stand in front of you as a nearly 2-decade corporate career owner, first generation college degree graduate, first generation advanced degree graduate, being the furthest from broke and broken that I've ever been. And if you haven't seen the TED Talk, which I highly recommend you give a nice little look-see to, I stepped on the TEDx stage in clean pair of J's, not these, there's another pair. Clean pair of J's, hat backwards, pair of jeans, busting the cold b-boy stance as I own my truth, as a testament to my ability to overcome and still succeed. I'm often asked, well, what was it that allowed you to go from all of the muck, all of the filth in which you were birthed in and which you had to matriculate through in order to get to success? And I've kind of coined this phrase. It's like I really created my own herd. And that herd stands for something. And I want to briefly break those elements down for you. So the first piece that I have to have, that H in herd, was to always make sure that I had hope. See, hope is the expectation, belief, or desire for something. Like even if it's surrounded by improbability. I can't stress enough how important hope is, especially when we're facing some level of adversity. The smallest of things can sway it in one direction or another. But when employed right, hope becomes a reason or even a cause for why we're going to move forward. It's the foundation of which all else that we accomplish springs from. And without it, it's going to be very, very difficult to be successful, and it's much easier to make decisions that work against our own best self-interest. The other piece that I'm extremely, extremely grateful for, the E, is my education. Every good thing that I've accomplished in my life, in my adult life, is a direct response from me deciding to get an education. From me going and getting that very first degree. Everything springs from that one decision. And there's several different elements of education, the value of it. So first is the actual learning piece, right? So the fact that I learned that the importance of time value of money, and that $1 today is worth more than $1 in the future. The fact that I learned about the 4 Ps of marketing. The fact that I learned about astronomy, the fact that I took philosophy courses. All of those things made me a more well-rounded individual. And it also showed my capacity to learn. That degree that I earned is a certification that I, at minimum, can be taught. That I have the capacity to learn. So it's important to get your education just from the learning standpoint and from the degree standpoint, but then also just from the networks you build. All of the good people that I've come in contact with who've helped to reshape my values, who's helped to pour into me to become who it was that I have now become. Very, very important. The other element of my education that's been so important is the resources that were provided to me. When I was in undergrad, I want to say I had 4 jobs that came from my direct engagement with the Career Service Office. Me going in there, finding out how do I tighten up my resume, how do I interview well, how do I find these opportunities, or for them to have opportunities that I could take advantage of, but then also taking advantage of the resources, whether that was counseling for classes and scheduling and majors, but also personal counseling for therapy, the computer lab, the tutoring, all of the resources that were instrumental in helping this first generation student who had no idea what it was like to go through college life, to be successful, all of those resources that helped to keep me on the right path. So we talk about the hope, we talk about the education. The other exceptionally critical part of my journey is that of resilience, the R. So, I talked about how hope was so important for us, and it being that force to help us carry forward towards the better day. Well, it's resilience that we have to employ every day on our path towards it. It's not hyperbole to say that while hope is the foundation towards a better future, it's resilience that actually keeps us on the path towards it. And at its core, resilience is how do we orient our minds? What is it that we tell ourselves about what's happening to us, even in the moment? It's really kind of a cycle. It's our beliefs that we hold. Those beliefs are going to impact the thoughts that we have. Those thoughts are then going to impact the feelings, and your feelings are a huge driver in the actions and ultimately the results that you get. So at its core, if you want to be more resilient, it starts in your mind. It's around thinking better. It's what you tell yourself about the adversity that you are facing. But resilience has so many different elements and layers to it. We can be more or less resilient depending on a bunch of different factors, right? So how strong is the stimulus? How painful is the adversity that we're facing? How intense is it? What's the duration of it? How long does it last? What's the cadence of it? Is it on the heels of already experiencing some other trauma, some other adversity or setback? So think of our resilience not so much as a binary on or off switch, but really more as a continuum. And as such, it's something that we all can grow. We can all learn to be more resilient. The question then becomes, well, how are you going to do that? So there are several different principles that I want to try to leave you with on how to enhance and grow your own resilience. So the first is the concept of power. Recognizing how much power you have. And this is a very difficult one because so many of us will overstate how much control we have, but underestimate how much choice we have. And within that choice, we have power. Because if you don't like something that's going on in your life, you have the opportunity, you have the capability to then go and change it. But that's only when you employ that power. And the thing is, the only time you lose that power is when you simply stop believing that you have it. So it's vitally important that we employ that power. The next piece is around perspective. Right? So how is it that you look at the adversity that you face? How is it that you regard the problem that you are facing? And the concept of perspective should be fairly familiar to us all, right? So the perspective that I have, looking out at a sea of a couple hundred faces, is a little different than the perspective you guys have, all looking back at one face. So that perspective is going to aid us in how we regard the different issues we face. So I have a question for everyone in here, but certainly the students. Like, how many of you are like really, really sharp math whizzes? It's a minority of hands going up. I see a few splattered in here, right? So most people are not just naturally inclined for math, right? For some people, it's a very, very difficult thing. But here's the rub, and actually, I don't even want you to out yourself. So for this one, just blink 3 times, right? You don't have to raise your hand. Just blink 3 times for this one. How many of you have actually made the decision that I am going to excel at math? Okay, not many blinks. See, there's a difference there, right? You have not only the power, but also how do you look at your problem, right? Are you just saying that I'm not good at this particular subject? Or are you saying that I haven't actually applied myself? I haven't put myself in the proper position for me to be successful. Once you do that, you're able to help build in and tap into your resilience. The next principle is the concept of planning. How you execute what you're going to do. Planning serves 2 purposes in relation to resilience. First, an adequate plan will help get you away from whatever adversity that you might be facing. But here's the other rub is, if you have a solid plan in place, it can actually prevent you from having to tap into that resilience in the first place. Because you've already made the provisional steps to identify that there's a pitfall over here. We've already built that in, so we're not going to have to meet that. We're going to get around that adversity. The next concept that's going to help us in our resilience is the concept of perseverance. So there's a lot of things that are going to befell us that unfortunately are painful. We're going to lose parents. We're going to lose people who are close to us. If you're fortunate enough to love, you're going to have heartbreak. Your pockets might not be as thick as you want them to be. Your debts might be higher than you want them to be. We're all going to experience some delta between what it is that we have and what it is that we want. And while we're trying to employ our perspective, while we're trying to put a plan together, while we're trying to use our power and our might to get through it, there's some things that we're just going to have to persevere through. We've just got to get from one moment to the next moment, from one day to the next day, 1 month to the next month, and string those things together until we get to the better day. That perseverance is critical, that we don't give up when that adversity hits us. The next concept that's going to help us is the concept of preparation. You know, one of the reasons why a car accident or a rear ending is so painful is most of the times you haven't had the opportunity to brace yourself for it, right? So you're sitting at the light, because none of us text and drive, we finally pick up our phone and see who was that texted us or who tweeted us. So you're at the light, looking at your phone, putting your makeup on, doing what you do, and then all of a sudden somebody runs up, bang, smacks you in the back, right? And that jolt snaps your head back, then forward. It's a really painful condition. Well, one of the things that makes that so painful is that you had no idea it was coming. And so you couldn't brace yourself. You couldn't steel yourself up to mute the impact of it. So something hits you from the back, and it's like, oh, okay, I knew that was coming. It's not all it is. When we're prepared, we're able to mute the impact of otherwise vicious blows, of otherwise damaging blows. Now, I noted in my TED Talk that certainly there's no way for any of us to be prepared for everything that comes. But that doesn't mean that we can't be prepared, we can't be ready for something. There are a lot of things that are within our control that we absolutely can steel ourselves up for in the event that adversity comes. For my adults in here, again, we're not gonna have you out yourselves, but how many of you have 3 months of living expenses saved up? Blink for me 3 times, right? Okay, I see some blinks, but I see some just staring back at me, right? That's a way that we prepare ourselves from adversity and we're able to be resilient. It's a lot easier to be resilient when I don't have to tap into stress. I don't have to tap into all of the different things, the anxieties that come up as a result of me not doing the things that I could have done to otherwise mute the impact of whatever I'm facing. The next principle is the concept of partnership. Partnership is vitally, vitally important for all of us. I think about life as kind of us going on a high wire, right? So you guys ever seen the circus performers where they're walking across a tightrope on a line? They're steady, kind of unsteady, but they're making it across. It might be some wind gust or whatever that might somehow knock them off. There's some people who actually haven't survived. But if you're on that high wire, more times than not, when you see it performed, especially at a circus or so, what do you see underneath? You see a safety net. Our partnership, our relationships, our networks, our friends, our families, our therapists, our professionals, those people that we surround ourselves will act as a buffer for us. They become our emotional safety net, so that while we're on the high wire of life, and then something comes that knocks us over, we have those individuals who can cushion that fall. One of the problems that we have with this experience of life is sometimes that desire to kind of cave into ourselves, to be alone, that I need to take care of this, I need to figure this out, which couldn't be further from the truth of how you're actually going to successfully navigate this situation. You need partners. You need individuals around you who are going to help guide you along your path. The last concept that's going to help in our resilience is the concept of purpose. I'm fortunate that through all of the different things that I've been through, from losing my mom, losing my dad, the poverty that I experienced, the feelings of not being loved, the adversity that I faced, all of this rubble that's laying around my life. One day I got to thinking, what if all of these things that happened to me actually happened for a reason? What if there was some definition, some attribute that I can lay this, I can attribute this to? And as a result of that, me finding a purpose in everything that's happened to me, I'm now able to stand before you and give a new meaning and a new definition to it, right? It's not just some random stuff that happened to me. It's something that I've used to actually build a career, to build a business, and more importantly than me, to be able to help other people bounce back and recover from their adversity, to be able to reach whatever levels of success that they need, to get whatever word that they're supposed to hear from me on their path to their success. The most resilient among us are going to find purpose in the trials and the adversities that they face. And more than that, upon discovery of that purpose, they're going to put it to use, either for themselves or for other people. So that adversity that you faced back as you were growing up, that adversity that you're facing right now as you're going through school, as you're dealing with relationships, as you're dealing with money issues, all of those things are going to serve a purpose in your life. The onus is on you to figure out what that purpose is and put it to use and not just lament in the brokenness. So that's how we help to grow our resilience. So we talked about the hope, we talked about the education, we talked about resilience. The D, what's the D? So the D is quite simply decision making. And not just decision making, good decision making. Right? So, example, I have a humongous sweet tooth. I will eat up all of the cakes, the brownies, the gummy bears. If it's sweet, I'm on it. That's my thing. It's one of my vices. It is what it is. But that said, does it make sense for me to eat an entire bag of Lifesavers gummy savers? I've done that before. And my stomach was in knots. Not even an hour later. Simply, as good as it felt to me, as good as it wasn't a good decision, right? I had fitness goals that I was trying to attain. It worked completely against that. There are so many decisions that we make that are not working in our best interest. And not only that, they further put our resilience to test. One of the biggest challenges I continually make to myself is stop artificially testing your resilience. Stop artificially testing your resilience. What do I mean by that? Stop putting yourselves in positions in which you have to be resilient from. Put yourself in the best position in order for you to be successful. If you are having challenges in a given course, then it makes sense for you to, let's say I get enough sleep the night before, that I allot the appropriate time for study, that I seek out the resources that I need. It is important on us, or incumbent upon us, to put ourselves in the positions that are best going to allow us to be successful. And that starts with our decision making. I started from exceptionally humble beginnings. To go on to having the corporate career, to having my own business venture, to finding my purpose and being able to live and create the life that honestly I never even knew that I wanted. I'm exceptionally fortunate to have been able to do that. And notice that I said that I'm fortunate to be able to have done that, because to be able to say that I'm fortunate means that there's an appreciation for the trials that I've had to go through, for the trauma that I've had to go through. Would I wish it upon myself? No, I don't wish it on anyone. But that very trauma, that very adversity, that very struggle is what allowed me to be who I am today. And I'm very proud of that journey. And I'm also saying that struggle, that trauma, that adversity that you are facing, or even that you've already faced, is the very thing that's going to allow you to fly and be who it is that you are called to be. I challenge you all to continue to maintain that hope. Don't ever lose that hope. For the students in here, get your education. You came here for a reason. That education is your ticket to the rest of the world. Do not lose that ticket. Continue to be resilient. Life is going to throw a whole bunch of stuff at you. We're all going to experience a delta between what it is that we want and what it is that we get. And that resilience that you employ is going to help you manage the difference. And then quite simply, we got to make better decisions, all of us, so that we can get to who it is that we're called to be. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yes, outstanding. It is. Thank you so very much. Resilience. I'm going to introduce Dr. Wanda B. Khalil in a moment, but hope, resilience, power, purpose, perspective, planning, all that you said is so powerful. So, and without further ado, closing remarks and acknowledgement by Dr. Wanda B. Khalil and questions and answers. Yes, questions and answers.
What am I good? We got questions over here.
Got a question? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, quite frankly, I do not need a mic. Nobody ever told Dr. Russell to speak louder. Okay, I can ask you this. First, I want to tell you that I certainly do admire the courage that it obviously takes to stand before an audience and reveal so much about yourself. So I want to know, what does give you that determination, that courage, that stamina to stand before an audience and reveal so much personal information? Thank you, and I did enjoy your address very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's two components to that question. So as far as being able to engage with an audience, it's crazy how life kind of comes full circle. So when I was a tiny type, I can't recall how many times I had to give the I Have a Dream speech, or I played Martin Luther King in the assembly, and so I'd get in front of the whole school and give whatever address. When I was in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, I was in performing arts for my elementary school, so I had a starring role in the play. The kid was like a triple threat out here, acting, singing, dancing. It was a good look. And again, all of that prepared me for being in front of an audience. So you fast forward many, many years later, and I'm giving a TED Talk in front of an audience of like 1,300 people, and it doesn't move me much. I've already been groomed for being in front of an audience. So that's the first piece of it. The other piece of it was, in my corporate career, from Oakland, I got hired with this small little technology company called Intel Corporation. They moved me up to Portland, Oregon, not the most diverse place in the country. But they moved me up there, and so as I started my career, because of the role that I had, I was in boardrooms, executive meetings with fairly high-level executives, people who have PhDs, who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, have millions in stock options and whatnot, and PhDs from very prestigious institutions, MIT, Sloan, MBAs, and all type of things. And so I found myself in those rooms, and where I used to be so ashamed of my background growing up, who wants to have a parent who is an addict, or who has lost a parent who was in jail and grew up on poverty? I used to be so ashamed of that. But I sat in one of these conference rooms one day, and it just kind of dawned on me. It's like, wait a minute, I'm holding court with all of these people who have much more solid foundations, who had much better experiences growing up, who didn't have the same trauma that I had, but I'm still not only in the room, I'm actually a valid contributor to this team. So I have zero reason to be ashamed or to hold my head down. In fact, I'm actually proud that I've made it to this point where these people who have credentials and who have foundations that were so much better than mine, that I'm still holding court with them. There's absolutely no reason for me to be upset or to hang my head. And from that, it allowed me to actually own what happened to me. That's the other piece, in that owning whatever trauma, owning whatever adversity befalls us is a sense of our power, right? If I was a really fat kid growing up and somebody teased me all the time about, you're fat, you're fat, you're fat, it's probably going to hurt, right? But if I acknowledge that, maybe I am a little bit chunky, maybe I'm a husky dude or what have you. If I own that and I take that weapon away from you, now what are you going to do? Right? So no one can hurt me about my background, about the fact that my mom was an addict, the fact that I lost my dad, about that I grew up in poverty. Nobody can hurt me with any of that because I own it. It's a part of my story. It's a part of my experience. And I value that experience. So I hope that answers your question. Got a hand up? Come on, man. You can't be yawning like that when the mic is on. You got to ask a question now. You threw your hand up.
How difficult was it being African American male in corporate America?
It was very difficult. Matter of fact, the reason why I'm not in corporate America anymore is probably in some way due to me being black. I lost a job, six-figure job, that pushed me out of corporate America. And the reason that was given is that I wasn't a culture fit, right? It's kind of a nebulous term, kind of a catch-all. So it can be very, very difficult to be a person of color in corporate America, or really just in a society that isn't fully equitable. That said, there are myriad of examples of success. Even within my story, even though it ended, I had a lot of success in corporate America. If it wasn't for my time in corporate America, I wouldn't have had either the skill sets nor the base of assets to allow me to say, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore. Let me invest in myself and try to build my own enterprise. So there are opportunities for success for people of color, for women, for any marginalized community. The question is, how do you go about getting that success? And even more importantly, how do you define what success is in corporate America? Got time for one more?
Good morning. I'm Carter Woody, Senior Class President. My question to you is, with your life experience and everything you've been through, do you have any regrets in the decisions you have made thus far?
One of the things that I've struggled with over my entire adulthood is when I was younger, my dad would come around and often ask me to. My dad was an integral part of my life, even though my parents didn't live together. He would come around and like, hey, you want to go to the park? You want to go and do X, Y, and Z? And my best friend, my childhood best friend, lived across the street. So I'd be like, me and Jason, we going to, do whatever, ride bikes, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, my dad was killed when I was 10. And so I still, even though I understand why as a kid, you don't know that your dad is going to only have a finite amount of time with you. I still battle with having some level of regret around not taking every one of those moments to spend with my dad. But, again, that's not something I blame myself for because, again, I was 10. In my adult life, there are decisions that I regret in relationships. staying in a relationship longer than you needed to be, financial decisions, things that the chances that I took that I probably shouldn't have, or wasn't, when I look back on it, like, you were probably doing too much on that one. But generally speaking, even in all of those situations, I talk about the concept of purpose, right? So there's a reason why I had to go through those things. So staying in that relationship longer than I needed to be, well, I had to learn that I needed to love myself, right? Love myself enough to leave a situation that isn't serving, right? You don't learn that experience unless you actually go through it. So on the one hand, yes, I do regret that I stayed in it that long, but on the other hand, I learned some exceedingly valuable lessons that I can now employ going forward. And the crazy thing is, life has a very, very funny way of making you repeat the class until you learn the lesson. Like, you will continue to befall yourself in the same type of situations, whether it's financial, whether it's heart-related, whether it's physical, whatever the case may be, until you actually learn the lesson. And learning the lesson means doing something different about whatever your condition is.
Now we will have closing remarks and acknowledgments by Dr. Wanda B. Camille, Interim Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Hunt, for such a powerful message. What I received from that message is don't give up, don't give out, and don't give in. Adverse childhood experiences are among us, and yet we are able to succeed, to thrive, to demonstrate excellence. Mr. Hunt reminds us to have hope, desire for something. That's our foundation to being successful. To earn your education in order to make better decisions, to seek out resources and to use them, to be resilient on a daily basis. You need to persevere. What do you tell yourself about the situation? What are your feelings? What do you say to yourself, and what do you think about what you were thinking about? How do we become more resilient? Mr. Hunt told us about the power that we have, choices that we make. Our perspective. How do you regard your challenges? How do you plan? A plan can help you, as he told us, to get around the adversity, to avoid the pitfall. How do we persevere? We will experience pain, that's life, but you cannot give up. Prepare. Are you going to mute your impact of damages, or are you going to take them head on? And also the partnerships that you form. Your circle of family, friends, and others who care about you. If you're in a circle of people who don't care about you, you need to change your circle, right? Purpose. Find a purpose in everything that has happened to you. Nothing just happens. It's amazing how you can go through your trials and bless others, because when you go through something, you're able to help other people to go through their own trials and become more empathetic. Decision making. You should seek wisdom. Stop putting yourself in a position that you need to be resilient. I encourage you to learn to appreciate your scars, your hard knocks education. You know, God has a way to shape us, to transform us, and to teach us to be His ambassadors. And oftentimes that comes with pain. Thank you, Mr. Hunt, for sharing your journey. We all have a journey, and Falcons, I hope that you own your journey. Use it to soar even higher. You have the victory, and once you know that, you can make a change in this life. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge the following organizations. Underneath the basketball goal, we have CAPS and Psychological Services. Wave your hands. Also, we have SAU Falcons, a registered student organization under the advisement of Professor April McCoy. And also Falcons for Help, a registered student organization under the leadership of Dr. Selena Judon Monk. Please visit their tables before you leave, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. O'Neill, for that beautiful summary of the speech. And now, Bertie.
Thank you, Dr. Falcon. And consistent with our traditional Falcon hospitality, display of hospitality, even though they're not packaged, we'd like to offer gifts and just something to remember this day and this university by. And I'd like to ask Mr. Hunt if he would step up, come forward, please. We have our motto, Mental Health Matters shirt we'd like to give you and take back to California with. And Dr. Falcon, you would, as a matter of sponsoring and supporting us in our ever endeavor, and there are many more folks out that we want to offer thanks to, Dr. Brown and administrators, Dr. Lumpkin. We'd like to just simply say that the shirt is coming your way, but for right now, Dr. Falcon.
Thank you so much.